Cool. So you've been into politics for 8 years now.
Yeah.
It's been a while. Yeah, I didn't know that long. And so you lately have been deputy mayor?
Yeah, so 5 out of the last 8 years I was deputy mayor.
Okay.
And I think that those years covering local politics on radio really put me in a good place to know who to speak to about certain issues. And
sure.
A lot of things go over a number of years, and so it was a good place to come in. I ran fourth on the ticket in the 2016 election.
Okay.
Everyone said, "Oh, there's no way you'll get in from there," but I just felt like I could kick in from the bottom. I'd already started teaching, but I was teaching part time.
Yeah.
And I got in with Simon Richardson. And
yeah, because that's when he was still in, right?
Yeah.
16. And when was the changeover? Was it 4 years ago, or when?
So about around 2020, we were due to have another election, but we didn't because of COVID, and his wife had just passed away.
That's right.
And so he stepped down then, and Michael Lyon took over. Yeah, just under 4 years ago.
Okay. So
very different mayors.
Yeah,
very different
no, it was
mayors.
interesting. What you were saying the other day, with Simon, there was a bit more of a connection with community in certain sense.
Well, if you remember, I guess he was, part of that same generation that we were.
Well,
he came with all
the
fire twirling, busking,
street
street music, businesses around town. But he also had a radio show on Bay FM. He had a regular newsletter that he put out.
Yeah, I did get that.
He really enjoyed talking to people. And I think, it's not everyone's strong suit.
Sure.
And whether you liked him or didn't like him as a politician, I feel like he kept those conversations going in a really informative way.
Yeah.
That I think probably the current mayor, Michael Lyon, hasn't been able to do, not because he's a bad person, but because it's just... He's a numbers man, he's a strategies man.
Yep.
He can do a piece to, television if he needs to, but it's not his natural habitat to be out and engaging with people. Where I feel like me and my team are in a better position to keep the community informed and do more meaningful community engagement.
Yeah.
And also, I've got to say, there's a quality amongst some of the councillors at the moment, and I've seen it over 8 years now, but they might make a mistake, and instead of admitting to it, they'll back themselves into a corner. They'll all stand around each other. There's a bit of a boys' club mentality that, for me, I think a lot of people, if I say that, they'll say, "Oh, well, that's just politics, isn't it?" And I think, well, that's actually the part of politics that I think most people are sick of. Most people would prefer that people were just making a decision because they thought it was the right decision, I think. And so, having worked with Delta and Michelle and Elia and Nell over the last few months, and I've known, Delta and Michelle for about 30 years.
Sure. That's cool.
I never get that feeling of somebody wanting to one-up somebody else. If they don't know the answer, they'll go, "Oh, tell me about that." Instead of trying to pretend that they do. They've got a real humility about them. They're very generous with whatever knowledge they do have. They want to see their friends succeed. It's a very different room to be in.
Yeah.
And so I think our community could really benefit with a bit more of that. Of course, there's also the question of diversity, and we have 5 women on the ticket, and it's not because we excluded any men. No men were injured in the making of the ticket, but we middle-aged white men have had a very long time to represent women and Indigenous people and people from the LGBTQI community and young people, all sorts of things. And, thank you for giving it a go. But now we're capable of speaking for ourselves, and I think it would be great to have, an Arakwal traditional owner at the decision-making table, not as an advisory body outside, actually through her own work and her own engagement with the community, actually having that role. People who are the hardest thing for us is all to just get together, because everybody's really involved with the community and the things that they do already as high school teachers, water engineers. You know, Nell's got a show on Bay FM now. So let's bring and foster that, because I think that is really what people miss when they come here now, and it's a little bit too expensive and a little bit too clean, a little bit too Gold Coast. It's them. We're missing the community and the people, and we need to find ways to bring people back into town so that we feel welcome when we go in there, and we don't feel like we're visiting a tourist mecca. Because I think that's what people really enjoyed when they came, like we did. Was that sense of atmosphere and community.
It's the whole Shire, you know, it's a beautiful thing. And remember, probably a good 10 years ago, you know, I was starting to feel that bit of busking, and backpackers were coming in. It's like, where's the buy? Well, it's here. Just you got to, you know,
you got to search a lot
harder. Let you know about the party in the hills next week or something, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And in a nutshell, how you feeling? You feel like you've got a big chance? I mean, maybe the whole community's after a change, and that will help give you that rocket fuel to propel you forward with the votes?
It feels like the right time. It feels like, you're like, I've stepped aside, I've supported other people for a long time in their roles, but it just feels like the right time to step into that mayoral position for me.
Yeah.
You never know until it actually comes to voting day, and anything can happen. But we're really lucky. A lot of people have put their hand up to have a go, who are really engaged people as well. And I, you know, whether I end up mayor or back just as a councillor, I think it's going to be a different dynamic already.
Anyway. A bit of reshuffling in the team. Like the council. Like
it might be the first time we have more women than men. It might be the first time we have someone under 30. It might be the first time we have an Indigenous representative. Those three things really mean something.
Bit of reshuffle. We'll have to, let's wrap up with the big questions. We'll just try to, why not? I've got, you know, we're here. In a nutshell, the housing issue, how are we going to go with that? What's the first big thing when you get in? I know it's a big conversation. We'll try to get through the big quick questions. I know it's huge and
complex
it's a big
puzzle,
one. Huge.
Very complex puzzle, and a lot of the things are outside our local government control in terms of...
Is it true, sorry to cut you off, the whole, especially with the roads, it's the federal, we're not getting enough funding generally from the federal government? Excuse my ignorance.
No.
Is that the general thing in a nutshell? Do we deserve more? Of course we do.
Local councils oversee the production of 74% of infrastructure and get less than 1% of the national GDP. So we are constantly, councils all around the country, underfunded. Less so in Queensland. They distribute their money differently.
Interesting.
And they pay their councillors better. We get paid very poorly here, worse in the country.
Interesting.
But we're the cost shifting from state and federal government, we shouldn't be having to look at housing issues, for example, but we do. We have the highest number of rough sleepers, homeless people in housing stress, the exponential growth of the housing market here has seen things like triple.
Post-COVID.
Well, and because a lot of places were Airbnb, they become investment properties, and
that's another big
thing.
So
we put, so that cap, the 60-day cap comes in on the 24th of September.
That's right, it's coming in.
Yeah, so that, and already more houses are coming back into the market. The price hasn't come down yet, but that's a start.
That's a start.
We've got some really good medium and long-term plans. So there's things like the old Mullumbimby Hospital site where we can put some diverse housing options there and some affordable and hopefully some public housing, because we do not have one single public housing house. And that is astounding. I couldn't believe that when I found that out. We have some social housing, but their prerogative is still profit driven. And it's very hard to deliver these things in that way. So we also implemented something. It was a first in New South Wales, perhaps even the country, but especially regional areas, where any new development, so if the Saddle Road development goes ahead or outside Bangalore, 20% of that will go to affordable housing.
Great.
We've set up a council-led lands trust, which will mean that that's in perpetuity, not just the state LEP. The council's worked really hard on this, but what we don't have, and I guess my biggest concern and what I really want to deliver in the next term, is we have no refuge for women escaping domestic violence, women and children. And we haven't, we really need to have one of those. We need some public housing. We have a federal government that said they're putting $5 billion into housing. We have a Prime Minister who grew up in public housing.
Okay.
Not $1 of that at the moment is being directed to public housing.
Yeah.
Public housing increases our commonwealth in the country.
Yeah.
And if, we hadn't started off, setting that, we'd be in a much better position. So trying to secure that sort of thing in the longer and middle term, I feel like we've got a good plan, but we don't have anywhere as well for people who are sleeping rough.
Yeah.
So a dignity village, somewhere where people can come and park their car, wash their clothes, shower, get some support. This is a really critical part of I guess, what we're offering.
Yeah.
Council has some land that we can utilise to do a thing like that. It really needs community buy-in, because when we've tried these things before, you get a lot of people saying, we really want it to happen, just not near us. Why do these people? And this is the bit, that divide between rich and poor has just become more and more extreme.
That is
and
true.
we need to, where that conversation, a democratic discussion has narrowed and narrowed, that other gap has just widened between rich and poor. We have the wealthiest billionaires in the country living, at what it goes, and we have people,
a lot of famous actors and musicians. And
I mean, we
who
always
wouldn't want to live
had,
here, if you got the money. I got my, compound up in the hills.
So finding ways to, I guess, bridge that gap, and that you do that by making beautiful public spaces. You do that by having community events that everybody wants to engage in. But we do need to find ways to look after people that's more dignified, because it's very hard to get out of poverty and out of homelessness if you don't have that support. People are often afraid that if you offer support, more people will just become homeless. It's not something anyone ever chooses or wants to do.
There's also, mental health, drugs and alcohol. It's more of a deeper social issue as well.
And all those things that become self-perpetuating. And there are other countries that have a housing first policy where the very first thing that they look after is making sure someone has a roof over their head. We seem to work the complete. We set up all these other systems around that. And I think to our detriment, because it costs a lot of money for someone to be homeless. It costs, when you take into consideration all the services that are required, it takes even more money to have someone in a mental health facility or in jail. That is incredibly expensive.
NDIS, they're putting a lot of money into that.
So if we can invest instead in people before that happens, we all benefit. But again, state and federal government really does need to come to the table. And we've been incredibly lucky, and this is something that I think people don't realise. For decades, we had very little support from the state and federal government. Simon was very good at building those relationships and getting some funding. So we got an extra $20 million for roads. We managed to get the skate park in Byron, which I remember, I don't know about you, but back in the 90s, trying to get that to happen. Finally, in 2024, it was delivered. So we need to make sure we build those relationships in a really positive way, but also the government's made a lot of promises, and we can help them deliver them, because we're ready to. We have those strategic plans ready to go, and I think we can all work together. And there's some really incredibly skilled people that are running for council who I hope get on, even some that aren't on my ticket. That I want to be a mayor that fosters and encourages people to do their best, whatever background they come from. We're there to represent the whole community. And I don't need to have my name on everything and my, flag on everything. I really want us all to succeed in a really productive way, and that means encouraging your peers to achieve what they want to as well.
No, awesome. It's we'll sort of wrap it up soon. I think my cameraman's getting probably a stiff arm there with his gimbal. And look, we could talk a lot more about all the other issues. I just wanted to touch on one major thing. So thank you so much for your time today, Sarah.
Oh, thank you. It's a real pleasure having a chat with you.
100%. And please subscribe to the channel. Jason Zalu here, signing off for Byron Bay Alive TV.